Good evening, everyone. You have reached the telephone town hall of Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. In just one moment, you'll be on with Congresswoman Johnson. If at any point during this call you'd like to ask a question, simply press *3 on your phone and one of our staff will assist you. Again, if you'd like to ask a question at any point during this call, press *3 on your phone and one of our staff will assist you. You're on with Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Good evening. I'm delighted that you've joined me for the town hall meeting, and I hope you'll feel free to ask questions. I am doing this town hall meeting because we've had a ruling by the Supreme Court that struck down Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. And because of that, Section 5, which is a preclearance requirement, cannot function without the standards by which it must function by. So it becomes important that the Congress establish the guidelines by which Section 4 can be implemented. What happened really is that there were challenges to Section 5, which Alabama and Texas was one as well, to do away with Section 5. That was not a challenge to Section 4. However, when the Supreme Court ruled, it simply said Section 4 needed to be updated. Well, because the ruling directly was supposed to be directly on Section 5, there was no information submitted that would guarantee what the formula would be in Section 4. And Section 4 does need to be updated. Section 4 designated what states and conditions that have to go for preclearance prior to implementing new voting laws at state level. And so because Section 5 was left intact for preclearance, but only if the standards for preclearance is updated, we now have to look at Section 4 here in the Congress. What happened when that happened, Texas had passed a voter ID law that had been challenged in court. It had been the denial for its use had made it all the way through Fifth Circuit, and because it was attached to the redistricting plan that had been done by Texas, it too could not be enforced, could not deny the enforcement until we got the new standards for Section 4. That might be confusing, and if it is, ask me some questions. What we have to do now is set the standards. Again, as you know, most of the standards were set that dealt with complaints from southern states in voter interference from primarily minority voters. There's great sentiment now that, of course, every voter, regardless of ethnic background, must be protected from intimidation. So it is now our duty in the Congress to go back and set the standards to reinstate Section 4 so that Section 5 can be implemented. But in the meantime, the day of the ruling, Attorney General Abbott said we will start to implement voter ID law for Texas tomorrow, which meant that it went into effect June the 26th. And you know, when the law was passed a year ago, June, we did a lot of information, distributed a lot of information, had a lot of meetings, went to service centers and senior citizen centers trying to spread the information because it was supposed to be implemented for the general election of last year. But the court had stopped it. It is now implemented. So until something else happens in court, and it might not, we now operate under the voter ID law in Texas. There has been a court challenge to it now, but nothing has happened there. That means you need to check your voter registration cards or the information that backs up your voter registration cards. The driver's license issued by the Texas Department of Public Safety is permitted, or a Texan election identification certificate. All of these can be gotten from the Texas Department of Public Safety. Now, last year, when we were trying to get ready for this, the Texas Department of Public Safety was not ready by September the 1st when it was supposed to go into effect. I hope they are now ready, and there are stations various places throughout Texas. Um, One of the things that we found to be an inhibitor was that students get driver's license usually before they leave home to go to college or before they move away from home. Their driver's license frequently will have the address of the home state of their parents. If they move away to college, in the past they were able to use their college ID to get a voter registration at the area of where they're in college. The college identification is no longer acceptable according to the Texas law. So young people or any person who has a driver's license must reflect the voter registration at the same address. That could mean changing the address on your driver's license when you move in order to get a new registration, or voting at the residence where you have registered your driver's license. I hope that's clear. If not, ask me some questions.
Again, if you'd like to ask questions at any point during this call, just press *3 on your phone and one of our staff will assist you. Again, press *3 to ask any questions. The first question this evening will come from Mr. Anderson Bones. Mr. Bones, you're on with Congresswoman Johnson.
Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Okay.
My question was, I was more concerned about this bill 4 and 5. Seemed like 5 needed more repair than 4 did, but they were doing more, seemed like, to upgrade 4 than it was 5. I would like to know why.
Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act simply require that the states and locations that had been previously determined to have had problems with voter intimidation or many complaints would have to be cleared. Any changes in locations or the voting law had to be cleared by the Attorney General's office. Nothing happened to change that. What did happen is that Section 4 set the standards by which Section 5 would be judged. In other words, locations throughout the country that had never been put on the list for pre-clearance never had to go by the Justice Department. The locations where there had been reports of many problems, primarily in the South, when they had poll tax and examinations, questions where they were asking primarily African Americans at that time, how high is the sky and how many beans in a jelly bean jar. And so those were some of the things that caused Section 5 to be put into the Voting Rights Act, is that any changes in voting law had to be approved by the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. 4 was a section that named the states or the locations where there had been proven problems that had to submit their changes to the Justice Department, which included redistricting at every level, whether it was city, county, or state, or federal, or moving voter places, and eliminating the need for poll tax and other qualifications for voting other than the citizenship and registration. Now that Section 4 has been called for updating, it becomes the burden of the Congress to update. Section 5 is intact.
Our next question will go to Ms. Florida Brown. Florida
Hi.
Brown, you're on with Congresswoman Johnson.
Hi, Congress Johnson. I just want to ask this question. I want to understand this. If a student, I have two granddaughters. Okay, one's in Rice and one's in the University of Texas. So, and they had both had driving license at the age of, they had the beginners and now they got their regular license. Okay, they would have to change their addresses to the college wherever they go. They stay down. One's in Houston, one's at Austin. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to vote unless they would come home and vote.
That is right. Their driver's license, the ID with their picture, with the driver's license, the address on that license is the address where they must vote from. Now, they can get another ID by going to the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles and getting an ID for voter registration and another address. We think it's cumbersome. We've had difficulty with this a very long time, but that's the law now, and it will be the law until it's changed. So they must must register at the address where those driver's license are, or they have to register. They have to get an update of the change of address on the driver's license, or go get another ID with their address where they wish to vote before they can get a registration card to vote at that location.
Again, if you'd like to ask questions of Congresswoman Johnson, press *3 at any time during this call. The next question will come from Ms. Claire Rogers.
Yes.
Ms. Rogers, you're on with Congresswoman Johnson.
Yes. What I want to know, first, what about the seniors? You know, like the senior citizen, do they have to do the same thing?
Yes, that is a concern.
Do we have to get a voting card to? How do that work?
The instructions are the same for everyone 18 years and older. Now,
if we got a voting card, long as our address is accurate, we can still vote?
If you have a voter registration card.
Right.
If you have a voter registration card, seniors can frequently vote absentee where the card with the picture is not required. But seniors that vote in person must have an ID with their picture on it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, the next question I want to ask you, what can we do about this law that has taken in effect? What can we do to stop it or turn it around?
On the voter ID?
About this bill they passed.
On the voter ID bill, it is being challenged in court now as it had been previously. It's just that when they struck down 4, when Texas filed a suit against the government to keep from implementing the redistricting plan and voter ID together, they no longer could insist upon Texas having it cleared when they struck down 4, because 4 was a section that had the requirements for having to go to justice in the first place. So the Congress has to restore the conditions of Section 4, which describes what area, what states, what locations will the Attorney General's office, have the Justice Department have the jurisdiction to check to make sure that voter intimidation is not present. Right now, that voter ID is the law of Texas. And so until something happens to that, we have to follow that law. Now, it's on my website. We have passed out materials. We will continue to pass out materials on it. We'll do it through churches, community centers, to get as much of the information out as possible as we did last year, except that it didn't go into effect. But I knew that Texas was not going to give up on trying to implement it, so we tried to educate anyway. Now, it is up to us here in Congress to correct and update Section 4. Now, my feeling is this. If there had been any prior knowledge that Section 4 would be even examined under these appeals, that information could have been sent, because when we did the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act in 2006, we had huge numbers of witnesses and volumes of material to show the justification for what states and locations that we recommended that the Justice Department would have to check before they could implement. So that could have been submitted had there been any sense that it would have been examined. But the appeals were on Section 5, and so the information had not been sent. But the information was easily available because we had all that background that had taken place here in Congress when we reauthorized the whole Voting Rights Act in 2006. I think that what we have to do now, in a very different kind of Congress, is to reauthorize the standards by which voting locations must reach for them not to be covered by the Voting Rights Act and be cleared by justice before anything could happen, must be reestablished. We are working on a strategy now to do that. We know that in the House we have a majority of Republicans. We've got to make sure that we can explain and get them to support the reauthorization with the standards for Section 4. We are working on that now. We hope we can get it passed this year. But all the information we can get coming in to encourage the members of Congress to address this issue is welcomed.
Again, if you have questions, please press *3 anytime during this call. Our next question will be from Milford Thompson.
Hi, this is Milford Thompson, and I'm just curious to know, are they going to do anything about the manpower shortage in our driver's license bureaus? Because if all these ID cards is going to be needed from the driver's license bureau, right now it's a 6-hour wait just to get your driver's license renewed. It's going to be 2 or 3 days before you can even get an ID card. And I would just like to add that this is kind of like a hidden poll tax. You got to pay for that driver's license or that ID card.
Thank you for your call. You know, when they passed this law last year, it was to be implemented by September the 1st. By September the 1st, they were not ready. The Department of Public Transportation, Public Safety was not ready. They did not have the equipment. They did not have the manpower. Now that they're implementing it, I hope between last year and right now, that has been improved. I have nothing to prove that it has been, and I have not spoken to the Attorney General, because when he hopped and said, you know, the day of the ruling, that this would be enforced starting the next day, I didn't hear him say anything about the readiness of the state to be able to accommodate this. You know, we have huge numbers of counties in the state of Texas. There are 81 counties that don't even have driver's license registration offices. And there are quite a few around urban areas. But as you just stated, there are very long lines. So I don't know how this is going to be handled. But I'm hoping between now and November, when it comes election time again, that this won't be a general election year, but we will have city council and throughout the state. We've had it in Dallas, but throughout the state there are city council meetings. There are petitions and constitutional amendments to be considered for November, and I hope we can be ready. But I can tell you this, we were not ready when it passed last year. I agree it's cumbersome. I don't believe it's fair, but it's the law, and we have to try to follow it.
Our next question will be from Pamela Goodrum of Grand Prairie.
This is Mr. Goodrum from Grand Prairie. Mr. Goodrum, I was just trying to see what do the people of the community need to do to have city representation and state representation and federal representation.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, why is the people of West Dallas without representation?
I don't know. I can't tell you that West Dallas does not have representation. Every geographical area I know in the Dallas-Fort Worth area has representation.
No, for the last 30 years, Miss Bernice Johnson, we've been fighting and struggling, trying to get a lawsuit done that was done by the state attorney general, Greg Abbott office and Rick Perry office, and you well aware of it. And we don't have no type of representation. No one to help us. No one in the state of Texas will help us on this. And you are very aware of the situation, right?
No, I'm not sure I know what you're talking about, because you have a city council person that's elected that represents West Dallas. You have a congressperson. You have a county commissioner, and there's at large the mayor.
Well,
so, I mean, maybe I'm not hearing you, but you do have people elected that you take part in electing to represent you in the particular offices of which they have run for, from the city council to the state legislature, state house, state senate, U.S. Congress, the county commissioner.
Again, if you'd like to ask a question at any time during the call, please press star 3. To ask a question, press star 3. The next question will be from Reverend Phillips of Cedar Hill.
Hello, Congresswoman Johnson.
Hello.
How you doing?
Okay.
It's good. And I can tell this seems to be a great concern of yours. And I want to know if you're not so comfortable with the law that has been passed, is there any strategy that we will be working on in the future with you to get this change?
Yes, indeed. We've had several meetings, and we will be having additional meetings. First, to get the information out in case we cannot change it soon enough so that people won't miss an opportunity to vote. And secondly, to build a strategy so that we can have the support that we need to pass the legislation to reauthorize Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. If you will call my district office at 214-922-8885 and add your name to our contact list for being involved in the strategy of trying to get information out and to build support for reestablishing Section 4, we would be delighted to have you involved.
All right. The next question will be from Ethan Williams of Dallas.
This is Good afternoon.
Hello.
This is Miss Billy Williams, and I was the one that had the question. It might come through as Ethan Williams, but I'm Miss Billy Williams. My
Okay.
question is, how does this affect the mail-in ballots of for voting? Fortunately, I do have been voting with the mail-in ballot. So what does this do for the voters that will and have been voting with the mail-in? Does this affect them in any way?
At this point, it does not. Now, when you have to register again, I don't know whether you will need that particular identification to re-register. That's not clear. But what they do have is a list of the acceptable identifications. First, the driver's license. The Texas Election Identification Certificate will be distributed by the Department of Public Safety. The Texas Personal Identification Card issued there as well. That's a card when you don't have a driver's license, but you can get an official ID. The Texas Concealed Gun License issued by the Texas Department of Public Safety. The U.S. Military Identification Card with the person's photograph. It has to be a picture card, picture ID, when you are registering to vote. The U.S. Citizenship Certificate with the person's photo, that's citizenship papers, and the other one is a passport. Now, right now, you have a voter registration card, and I'm not sure when it expires, but it won't be real soon. And you can use that card by voting by mail without a picture ID. When it expires, it could very well be a different story, because to register after that could mean you need that picture card to register. I'm looking at my voter registration card now to see when it expires. It expires December 31st, 2013, which is the end of this year. Now, that's past November. So for this November, all you'd have to do is vote by mail without a picture ID. Now, after that time, and we'll have primaries coming up for everybody, probably next March, you'll need a new registration. I don't know if registration cards will be mailed as they have been in the past. You know, they would mail them when you voted, but they are not transferable. If you moved, they just send them back. However, if you get another registration card in the mail, then, and you don't have a picture ID that you can take to the polling place, then I would say just vote by mail.
Our next question will be from Susan Palmer of Dallas.
Hello, Congresswoman. This is Susan Palmer from Dallas.
Hello.
Hello. My question is a little bit broader than your previous callers. I'm wondering what you see as possible fallout from the change in the Voting Rights Act in terms of voter turnout in your district and across the state.
Well, we are concerned about voter turnout because we don't want people to be fearful that they will be intimidated when they go to vote. All we've ever wanted is for eligible voters to be able to vote without intimidation. And, you know, in some parts of this country, it happens without a problem. It just has not happened in many states and in many portions of states. There are some states that are covered by the Voters' Rights Act. That's only a couple of counties. But many southern states, where there has been such a long history of voter interference and voter intimidation, that the entire state is covered. I'm hoping that people are not frightened and will insist upon finding a way to vote. We want to be of assistance in making sure that they are ready to vote when they're ready to vote. And so that's why we are passing out information. We are trying to get it distributed through churches and community centers um, to try to make sure that people understand what this consists of. We think it's unfair, but the majority of the Texas legislature passed it, and it's been signed into law. And though it had been challenged in court and was on appeal to the Supreme Court, when they struck down 4, it also struck down the definition of those places that should have the review by the Justice Department. And that's the only reason why, at this point, it's in force. There is a lawsuit that's been filed in Corpus Christi against it, but as far as I know, it hasn't been a hearing yet. But we need to make ourselves chairman in every household to make sure the information gets out there. You know, sometimes when people think that their votes are going to be denied, they're even more vigorous about voting. And we saw that happen this last November in places where they had been labeled battleground states, where intimidation was indeed in place. People voted in big numbers. And intimidation can come in many ways. And it did this past November by cutting down the early vote time, cutting out the Sunday voting, cutting down the hours that polls will be open. There are many ways to intimidate a voter. Most places, minority voters take advantage of early voting. And it's ironic that shortly after that statistic was noted, they start cutting the days of early voting. Well, all of that has to be reviewed, and we will be able to get that same data collected that we collected when we put Section 4 under the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act in 2006. Instead of things getting better, in many places they got worse. And so that's the reason why we want to reestablish Section 4 so that we can eliminate this intimidation, because I'm a firm believer that every registered voter should be able to vote without intimidation no matter which way they vote.
Again, if you'd like to, during any time in this call, would like to ask questions of Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, simply press *3 on your phone. Again, if you'd like to ask questions, press *3 on your phone. Next question will be from Lucy Kane of Dallas.
Hello, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. You're doing a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you very much.
My first question is, with the students, couldn't they do absentee voting? Or is that,
yes.
Can they do that and still have their home address?
Yes, they can.
They can do that.
They can do absentee voting, but the absentee voting must be where the address is. If they wish to vote at the location where their college is location or where they currently reside, then that's when they have to have a voter ID, a voting card with their picture on it showing the address where they're voting from.
Oh, okay. And my next question is, how do we get involved as citizens to help with this process, to help it to transition smoothly, and what can we do?
Well, we try to do all we can out of both my official office on official business and my campaign office. Let me give you a number. If you call, we can get your name on a list when we have meetings. It's 214-922-8885. We'd love to have all the volunteers we can get.
All right, the next question will be from Doretha Reeves of Dallas.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Yes. I had read online that the Texas ID voter card would be free. Is that true?
Well, the Texas ID voter card will be free from what I understand. However, if you use your driver's license, you know that's not free. And that was not budget last year when they first started this for it to be done. Hopefully, it can be done with a free card this time. If it's not done free, I think we do have another poll tax.
All right. Again, if you have any questions of the Congresswoman at any time during this call, please press *3. The next question will be from Doreen Choice of Dallas.
Hello.
Doreen Choice of Dallas.
Hello. How are you doing this evening?
Okay. How are you?
Good. You're doing a wonderful job.
Well,
I was wondering, how in the world are we going to get all these people that's not registered an ID card with the facilities that we have here in Oak Cliff? There's no place to go. We have to go to Cedar Hill to have our driver's license renewed. And when you go up there just on a regular day just to get your driver's license renewed, you have to wait forever. And with all these people trying to get registered for ID card, I just think it's going to be impossible. So if Rick Perry is demanding that all this stuff, then he should put places out here that people can get it done.
We have written letters and asked for more locations because we recognize in Dallas County, even though we have several locations, we have a huge population, and they're still busy. But remember, we have 81 counties in Texas that have no place in that county for people to go. Now, of course, in Dallas County, we have at least 8 different locations where people can go. But I'm like you, wherever you go, under regular circumstances to renew a driver's license, there are lines. And so when we now are demanding that all these people have a picture ID and go to the Department of Public Safety to get it, we do create a huge problem. But we'll do our best to try to do it. But in the meantime, we will also document what problems we are having, which could support the reason for changing this law.
The next question will be from Alan Cruz of Dallas.
Hello, Ms. Congresswoman. I want to know, is there anything in place for the people that can't afford IDs, since we've been forced to get IDs, or anything in place for those people, or the elderly that can't go and get ID? Is there something that's in place for those people?
Well, you can receive a free ID from the Texas Department of Public Safety, just a plain ID, if you can get there. If the line gets to the point where you can get there to get it done, they do promise that you can obtain it free. Now, hopefully that's true today. Last year, they did not even have the equipment nor the people to do it. They said it would go into effect last September. From September to November, there was no way to do it because they were not ready. So I'm hoping that right now they are. I have not checked, but I certainly will take any calls that I get in my office to look into any problems that people are having so we can see if it can be corrected.
Again, if at any time anyone on the call would like to ask a question of Congresswoman Johnson, simply press *3 on your phone and one of our staff will assist you. Again, press *3 if you'd like to ask a question of Congresswoman Johnson. The next question will be of Polly Galmore of DeSoto.
Good evening, ma'am. My question is, and you've answered part of it throughout the conversation, but I would like to know, in order for us to help you build support in Congress to reestablish Section 4, what can we as the people do? And by that I'm asking, do you need us to do a letter writing campaign or some type of communication to other Congress people that may not be as open to changing this law, so that we can try to let them know that the people really want this to happen? How can we help you that
Yes,
way?
that would be wonderful if we could get letters coming in to people to help us to reestablish this Section 4. Now, let me say that in 2006, when we reauthorized the entire Voting Rights Act, which included Section 1 through 5, there were members in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who did support it. They were Congresswoman Granger, Congressman Ralph Hall, Congressman Marchant. But Congressman Joe Barton, Congressman Sam Johnson, Congressman Henselin, Congressman Sessions did not support the reauthorization. So we would like to thank those people who did support it and ask them to support it again, and those that didn't, plead with them to please consider supporting it this time. And I would welcome any help we can get to help get a letter writing campaign to go on. And you can call my local office and at 214-922-8885, and we'll be happy to help. We'd love to have every volunteer we can get.
The next question will be from Eula Carey.
Oh, shoot, that was me that just opposed this question.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Well, if you want to help, we would love to have you or anyone else who might be listening. I will say that the majority of the Texans that were here at that time voted yes. But the persons who voted no were Sam Johnson, Jeb Henselin, Joe Barton, Mike Conaway, Matt Thornberry, Ron Paul, and Pete Sessions. The rest of them voted aye, and we hope that we can encourage, now we have 4 additional people. We hope that we can encourage all of them to support it, because it's a lot less problem when every registered voter can cast a vote for the persons of their choice. It is not about party, it is about privilege.
Again, if you have any questions at any time during this call, please press *3. The next question will be from a Nestor Sorrells.
Yes, how you doing, Ms. Johnson?
Hello, how are you?
All right. I'm an American postal worker, and
yes.
We've been supporting you all the time, anyway, because you've been, supporting the post office, the government.
Well, thank you.
One question I want to ask is just like they always come up with something to implement or to slow down the process, something to deter you from voting. Is it going to always be like that, and is it something that, something that we can do to try to, implement something into government to keep them from doing that?
Well, that's what we thought the Voting Rights Act was going to do. And that's what the Voting Rights Act has helped to do. However, the Voting Rights Act is up for reauthorization every so often.
Yeah.
I have voted for reauthorization at least twice since I've been in Congress. The last time it was reauthorized was 2006. Now, it was reauthorized at that time for 25 years, but the Supreme Court has struck down one section, and that's Section 4, and that's what we need to reinstate now. And hopefully we can, but we cannot do it without passing a law. And, since 2010, we've had a Congress that's been so contentious that it's been very difficult to get anything done for the working people or poor people. So we don't know how difficult it will be, but we do have some Republicans who are working with a small group of us trying to come up with good language so that we can see if we can pass it to reinstate it. I wish we didn't need it. I would rather not need this. If everyone registered to vote could vote without intimidation, we would not need it. But it's clear, especially in Texas, we have a long history of intimidation. And so if there ever will be another Section 4 that defines who must be in it, I am almost certain that Texas would qualify. The mere fact that they wrote this law that does not allow a college student that has a picture ID, will not allow that as sufficient ID for them to register to vote, but they will allow gun license to be a legitimate thing. I think it tells you where we are in Texas. Now, the law has passed. I would not have voted for it, and many people that I know well did not vote for it. But a majority did, and it's been signed into law by Governor Perry, and Attorney General Abbott is determined, he said, to implement it. And it only is painful for seniors and young people, and perhaps even some new citizens. However, most new citizens have new documents or a passport. But young people who are trying to get an education, most of them away from home, going to college, it puts an extra burden on them. For our seniors who don't have a driver's license and perhaps don't even have access to a birth certificate, it puts a burden on them. But we intend not to allow that to keep them from voting. That's why we're trying to get the information out early enough. And if we get called in my office, I will organize teams of volunteers through churches and everywhere we can get people to help get these people eligible to vote, because if they've been voting all this time, they surely should not get to this point in 2013 and not be able to vote.
All right, the next question will be from a Miss Annette Moon of Dallas. Annette Moon, you're on with Congresswoman Johnson.
Hello.
Hello, Ms. Johnson. I have about 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
What if a person that was born, that's up in age and they don't have access to their birth certificate here in Dallas, would they have to go back to where they was born, or do they send to Austin to get their birth certificate so they'll be allowed to vote? Or
well,
what do they need to do?
Okay, let me answer that first. What you can do is, if that person is mobile and can get to a driver's license location, they can take anything that identifies them and where they live. They can carry a utility bill or a mortgage payment or a Social Security payment, anything that identifies them at a particular location. And then they will be allowed to use that identification to get a voter ID card, where they will take their picture just like on a driver's license, but it'll be for voting purpose only.
Okay, my next question. I was born in a rural area, and I was born by a midwife, but now on my birth certificate there's one name, and on my ID is another name. So what would I need to do?
You have an ID now?
Mm-hmm.
With your picture on it?
Yes, ma'am.
Just keep using that to register to vote.
Okay, and the next one is that I have a daughter that goes to school at Gremlin, does she need to come back here to vote, or change her driving license to Louisiana? What does she need to do?
She needs to get a voting card with a picture on it for Louisiana, or change her address on her driver's license, or come home to vote, or vote absentee from home for voting at home. She would not be able to cast a ballot for anybody living where she's in school, but she could be able to cast a ballot at her home base. But to cast a ballot where she's living to be in school, she will have to get a registration at that location.
All right, our next question will come from Miss Dolores Young of Dallas.
Yes, hi, Miss Bernice.
Hi.
I would just like to know, would you explain to me about the redistricting for voting?
Yes. Well, you know, we were in court for a long time last year, and finally that was a temporary map that was ordered by the court in order to get the election over. When the court issued that plan, they indicated that was for one election only. So we are now back in court under Section 2. Section 2 is a part of the Voting Rights Act that allows someone to go to court when they think they have been discriminated against. We have been upheld by the lower court, by the circuit court in San Antonio. Actually, the circuit court in the District of Columbia also sided with us, the plaintiffs, who indicated that because of racial discrimination in packing and cracking, caused us to have fewer districts than we should have for representation. Now, Let me explain to you what cracking and packing is.
I think I heard it.
Okay, because what's happened, they will cut up African American and Latino voters into little pieces, and put little pieces of them into a huge population of others, where the others can outvote them.
Yes.
Where if they draw the lines where the people can elect the person of their choice, we would probably get more Democratic seats. Now, Texas is frankly a minority state now.
Right.
In Dallas County, the last 10 years, we gained nearly 1 million new people, with all of them being minority. We lost Anglo voters to the tune of about 200,000. So when you look at that population, the Dallas-Fort Worth area supported the seat that I'm in, another African-American seat based in Fort Worth pretty much, and a Latino seat. We sent maps in to that effect. But when they started negotiating, the Republicans said they weren't going to give up a one seat up there, so that's the one that we got was winged from Dallas and Fort Worth. Well, we didn't have a problem with that, but the way they drew it was not satisfactory because they packed by packing a huge African-American population into my seat and taken away a lot of other areas, which kept having a second African-American seat where they could clearly elect a person of their choice. However, the district ended up about 67% Latino, 18% African-American. But the African-American out of Fort Worth won that seat. I never thought we should have had an African-American Latino in a situation like that running against each other when it should have been a seat for the people to elect the person of their choice, Latino and African American. So that's what we are trying to do to correct it at this time, is to try to make sure that we can get the seats that our population growth, based upon the rules for even drawing these lines, if they are drawn fairly, there would be 2 African American seats, Dallas, Fort Worth, and 1 Latino seat at this time. But the minority population was the growth in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The Anglo population went down. And so that's all we're trying to do in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And the battle continues.
All right. The next question will be from Sharon Petit.
My question is regarding making as many people as possible aware of this issue and what they can do. And I know that states issue an ID for people that do not drive. Would a college student be able to get an ID and use that to vote, or should we just tell them to mail in their vote?
Well, both things will work. They can get, they can get a voter ID card. That is not a driver's license, but it's issued by the Driver's License Bureau. They can do that. Or if they have a voter registration card now, they can use that card if they and vote by mail if they don't have a picture that they can show with the same address as the voter registration card. But let me tell you this. My Dallas, I'm calling from Washington. We've been in session all day. But my Dallas office is 214-922-8885. We will do all we can to get the information out. We will try to make sure that every church, every community center will have information available. We need all the volunteers that we can get. So if anybody was willing to help us volunteer, just call that number. No matter which way people vote, they ought to have that right. If they are eligible to vote, they should be able to vote. And I want to see that we try to help that. You don't have to come to me only because you might be a Democrat or whether you vote for me. That doesn't matter. Sure, I'd like to have you vote, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people having the ability and the privilege of casting a vote for a person of their choice when they're eligible. And we want to help them become eligible. So thank you very much. My time is out, and I'm going to have to say good night. I appreciate all of you calling. I hope you'll continue to call and call the office. Any questions that you have, we will try to answer them. Good night.